I'm going to now have the honor of introducing someone who's been my hero for about the last 25 years. I first heard Tom Delbanco speak in the late 90s at a quality conference where he was talking about some crazy ideas like bringing patient perspectives into medicine. This was really radical back then, and it had a profound effect on my thinking. And then our paths crossed again about 20 years later when I was at another quality conference and heard John Santa talking about OpenNotes. And I was not too surprised when I heard that Tom Delbanco had been instrumental in getting OpenNotes started. So he's incorrigible for all these years, and he really understands the practice and promise of medicine. So Tom, can you help us understand why is it often difficult to convince doctors that OpenNotes is okay?
Hi, Carrie, and hi, everybody. It's very nice to talk to you. It is very cold here. My daughter lives in Berkeley, and I'd be much rather be out there visiting all of you. Although I guess you've got some rain, which you need coming that way. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm delighted to know a lot of you, not know more of you, and hope to meet more of you in the future. I thought what I would do today is do more diagnosis and therapy. Susan's already talked about some of the treatment that we need to do, and others will do that. I thought it's always nice to know what obstacles you face before you try and change things. And the one thing I know quite a lot about is doctoring, I guess, because I've done it for a long time. So I thought in a kind of homespun way, I would talk about some of the obstacles we face. And I won't spend much time on how to overcome them. I will just lay it out there and then let us all in our individual ways, in various ways, try and figure out what to do about them. The first thing is critical thinkers, what's wrong with this idea? We are socialized in medical school to read critically. I remember very well being given papers to read and never being asked what's good about this, but also always what's wrong with this? What could they have done better? What should have been done differently? Why are the statistics wrong? Why is the sample size wrong? And why is the question not properly put? So the basic impulse I've found in myself and my colleagues ever since that time really is when I hear about something new, what's wrong with this rather than what's good about this? That's an obstacle when you're asking for culture change. We're also basically pretty obsessive people, which is exactly what you want when you're sick, I think. You want someone who crosses most of the T's and most of the I's, thinks out of the box on occasion, but really drills down and goes in order. Obsessive people have trouble changing. They have trouble going with the flow. They have trouble moving in different directions. And I think if you want to, again, group us as a cadre of people, that's one of our characteristics. We also learn to do things by habit, even though we claim we don't. We have our own patter song. I remember when I was in medical school and I was taught to present patients, we were taught to present them when we were dead drunk, standing on our head, smoking pot, having been up all night, and not thinking about it. We just did it by rote. We knew how to, and we learned how to do things. 1, 2, 3, go. It's hard then to change patterns. We claim that we're very individual decision makers, that we think for ourselves, but we were brought up again in hierarchies. The chief of medicine, the chief of surgery was the big boss. It was a little bit like my days in the Army when he or she, it was mainly he in those days, called, I snapped to, I dropped everything I was doing, I answered the phone, and I was there. So top-down management, not team management, not participatory management, not up from the bottom. But we think that way so that when you ask for culture change, and this points to a solution, you've got to make sure that some of the people at the top of that pyramid are really pushing for this change. And if not, you're going to have a hard time doing it from the bottom up. We don't always think very hard anymore. And when we think about music, or we think about baseball, or we think about politics, or we think about other things than medicine. I found that when we get in that rut and we know what we're doing, and we've been doing it for a long time, if we want to use our imagination, if we want to do interesting stuff, it often is far away from what we've been doing. On the other hand, OpenNotes is asking us to do something different within what we're doing, within what we do every day. And that's an interesting other challenge for us, I think. I don't have to tell you that doctors are very pooped. They're angry, they're tired, they're disconnected. You have to talk about burnout when you talk about doctors these days. Otherwise, you're not talking about the flavor of the month. And it's more than a month now. It's a lot longer than that. Pretty hard to change and do something different when you're burned out, when you're tired, when you're depressed, when you're down at the mouth. And we all know that, and we all understand that. Could I have the next slide, Amanda? We're pretty ambivalent about all these technologies. There's a terrific piece that I just saw today in AMIA, the Journal of the American Informatics Association, written by a doctor who's a pediatrician and internist in Rhode Island. Elizabeth Toll is her name, Betsy Toll, talking about her evolution as a doctor. She's not all that young, and what the EHR has done for her. And I don't have to dilate on this right now. It's very fashionable. We're always reading about it. I'm a little turned off when I read that everybody hates the EHR, because I remind myself how frantic everyone gets when it goes down for 10 minutes and when they wish it was there. I think the EHR has brought a lot to us, but it's also brought a lot of trouble and a lot of difficulty. And we make a big point in OpenNotes saying this is not an EHR thing. We're just saying share your notes. I did it for many, many years. I would print out a note, or I would give a patient a copy, or I would send them a letter. Many people have been doing that for a long time. There's nothing unique to the computer, but it's easier with a computer. It's one step, right? And that tangles us up with the EHR. That mixes us up in it. And when you're angry at the EHR, it's hard to distinguish OpenNotes from that. We make lots of claims about the level playing field. That's also very fashionable. But basically, my mother thought that when I went to medical school, I'd be giving orders to patients. And young people today feel very differently from the way I was socialized, but it's not all gone. Doctors are well educated, they're smart, they're articulate, they're verbal, they have a mouth. They like to be the boss. They like to be independent, even though I talked about hierarchies. And they're scary. They also know a lot of stuff that patients don't know. So we talk about shared decision making. I always view that as saying the patient has a unique body of knowledge that's his or her own. The doctor has a unique body of knowledge that's his own, unless the patient happens to be a doctor also. And that our job is to get these two bodies of knowledge together to intersect, if you will, overlap, make a Venn diagram. But the field is yet not level. Patients are still scared of us. It's one of the reasons they're so quiet when they read the notes. And we have to work on that. That hasn't changed. We probably like to be with our own kind. We probably take the best care of patients who have similar educations to our own, who may have similar colors to our own, who may have similar ethnic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, as I alluded to. There's quite a lot of research on that. So we may actually not do as well with patients who are different from us. And it may actually, the interesting thing in our research in the past and in some current research that we're just writing up now, the people who are most grateful for OpenNotes are often those people who are most different from us. Probably because in the examining room itself, that level playing field is even less level, and the communication is even less good. And it's even more valuable, therefore, that when that person goes home, and can, in the peace of the home with their family or alone, review what happened and get something out of it. It's an interesting kind of paradox if you think about it. We've also owned these notes forever. When we wrote our first paper in the Annals of Internal Medicine about why don't we offer patients notes, Chris Lane, who's the editor, got an outraged letter from one of the regents of the American College of Physicians, a distinguished hematologist, saying that she had no business publishing this ridiculous paper. Didn't she understand that notes belong to the doctor? Why does she publish papers written by young whippersnappers who haven't been around long enough and don't understand medicine saying this? I was thrilled when I looked up this gentleman's CV to see that I was quite a lot older than he was. And I ended up actually debating him at an ACP national meeting and having a good time doing that. But we've long owned our notes. They're ours. We share them enough with quality people, with insurers, with other colleagues. Now we're adding the burden of sharing them with patients and their family members. That's a lot, and doctors don't take to that so kindly, even though they know the data and they hear the data about how patients profit from it. They don't think they write very good notes, and they often don't. And these are people who've been used to getting A's all their lives, who've achieved everything, and now this layperson is reading this illiterate, malformed, cut and paste, techie, shorthand, idiotic note, and they're embarrassed by it. I can't read an ophthalmologist note. There's lots of data that's showing that most doctors have no clue what an ophthalmologist is writing about when they write a note. A lot of doctors have English as a second language, not just patients. They don't write so beautifully. They don't write so articulately. Most doctors actually were not English majors. For those people who are obsessive about the language, they turn green when they read about the way doctors write notes. So they're embarrassed. Why should they share them? And finally, change is really hard for everybody. Doctors are no difference. I got a little card from a woman whom I worked with at one point when we were disagreeing with something and she had decided to leave. She gave me a little card that I kept on my table for a long time. Constant change is here to stay. And it really is. It's wearing, it's tiring. And here comes OpenNotes saying it again. Just one thing about nurses. Next slide, Amanda, and I'll be quiet. Nurses, in a funny way, have a special challenge with OpenNotes, and I don't think everyone thinks about it. My colleague, Jan Walker, has really been my partner in this from the very start when we started this craziness about 10 years ago. Doesn't disagree with me about this, and she's a superb nurse. Somehow or other, doctors make diagnoses and establish treatment plans, and then they're done with it, but the nurse really takes care of the patient, right? Hangs in there, sticks with him or her over thick or thin. They are the ultimately patient-centered person. And OpenNotes, in a funny way, is threatening that because it's giving some more of the turf to the patients. And I believe that patients actually threaten nurses a little way by taking more control and being more aggressive and more assertive. Think about that. I may be wrong, but consider that. I will tell you that in our research, nurses in general are the most enthusiastic people about OpenNotes, certainly beat doctors in terms of enthusiasm. So I'll be quiet here. Do I have another minute or 30 seconds, or am I done?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. I just wanted to comment on one thing Susan had said about making the notes more visible in the portal in California. We in Boston have an interesting way of doing it. We have the OpenNotes logo on the front of our patient portal. And we have a little writing next to it saying this is what OpenNotes is, and if you want to learn more about it, click here, which brings them to the OpenNotes website for patients. But it also means that if you click on the logo It takes you right to your note, as she was suggesting. And not only does it do that, but our hospital has decided to come up with a new word, which is OpenNote. Small o, small n, one word. So the patient is actually seeing something new and different from anything he or she has ever dreamt about. And this is a new technology. It's a new intervention. As Susan said, some patients don't even realize that we write notes. And being able to see them and see them right in front of their noses as a new thing probably accounts for the fact that more notes, I think, are read at our hospital than virtually any other place. Think about that as an intervention wherever you work. I'll be quiet.
Thank you for that, Tom.